Hi everyone, welcome to Adobe Live. I'm Flynn and I'm here with Joy Lee. Hello Joy, how are you?
Yay! We're
Yay,
back.
we
I'm
did
really
it.
good. How? Yay!
You are good?
Yes. No. All good. All good.
All good. Thumbs
All
up.
good.
We had a really exciting we connected ages ago. We're like cruising. We're like, yeah, we're all set. I'm like, I'm gonna get a coffee before we start. Came back and then realized we had all these tech issues that we solved about a minute before
Three
we went
minutes
live,
ago.
3 minutes ago. So we're
Yeah.
happy.
Download. Download quickly.
Yeah, we sorted it out. It's all good. So we are here. We're here for 2 hours. Yes.
Yes.
We're doing
Yes.
part two, learning all about branding with Joy Lee in a really fun project because, as Joy
Mhm.
said, if we're going to do something like this, let's make it lots of fun. So it's been based on Animal Crossing for all the Animal Crossing players out there. It was fun last week, wasn't it? We had a good time.
Yeah. Exactly. I have lots to go through this week. Hopefully, get through it all.
There's heaps to
So.
go. Yeah, there's heaps to go through. Hey, chat. Hey, Elizabeth, Steve, D, Festus. Yeah, Miguel's in the house. Johanna, thanks for joining us. Hey, D. Great to see you here. A lot of friendly faces that were here last week. But yeah, if you missed it, then maybe Joy, we'll get stuck into it because there is so much to go through. So I'll let
Yeah.
you
There's a
give
lot
a
to
bit
get
of
through.
I'll let you give a bit of a recap, and I won't slow you down.
Oh, no worries. You don't slow anyone down, Flynn. Okay. Welcome back. Part two, Behance Live at Home, but quarantine themed. A small recap from last week, or for those who weren't here, it'd probably be good to watch that episode if you want to understand a little bit more about the theory behind branding. So today is a little bit more hands-on. So prepare for a lot of design. Um, from last week, now we kind of know. Oh god, I'm having a throat spasm. Too excited. I'm so sorry. Okay, better. So now we know what a brand is and how it functions and exists in the world. So there are a few examples kind of that I want to go through, that I want to mention also, just to create a framework for how branding works on the implementation level and where brand assets are defined and applied on different collateral and touch points. So going into, again, for those who don't know me, I'm a full-time brand and a brand designer at Accompany in Sydney. So this is just one of the brands that we recently worked on the Coffee Club, and these are just the brand guidelines that we created for them. So brand guidelines in general. So if you don't know, it's where all the rounds and rounds of work and thinking is synthesized and beautifully crafted in this like neat package, detailing all the rules that explain how a brand functions. So this physical piece of work is kind of the thing that the client usually wants at the very end when they're looking for the brand services, usually most of the time. And it's quite funny because the shock that people get when they hear how much these documents can cost, and like thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
dollars for what, a document. But I guess like to debunk that, it's not really just that. It's kind of, we know like the amount of thinking and the work that goes behind it to make this final document. And let's be honest, like branding is a skill and a service. It's actually funny because like, so slight sidetrack and slight rant. I kind of have a good comparison when I make it. It's just easier to understand. It's like when you're sick, you go to a doctor, but you realize the value for a doctor is for their expertise and their knowledge and skill in understanding your illness, not what you're actually getting at the end, which is a diagnosis. So which should be the same for designers. It's just double standards, you know?
Double standards. It's so true.
Yeah.
And it's funny what you say about the brand guidelines, because every now and then there'll be something in the news. I know certainly in Australia, and I know in other places where there'll be a logo and a brand attached to it, often for like something cultural or government or something, and it'll be public knowledge what it cost. And then people like lose their minds. They're like, I could have done that for
exactly. But no, you couldn't have. You have to go through that process. It could have been a year, like who knows? You just don't
Exactly.
know what goes on behind there.
Exactly.
I guess another one, it's like, well, 12, like, I mean, a barista sells, like, if they make 12 coffees, they sell 12 coffees. Whereas we come up with 12 ideas, but only one idea gets sold.
Right. I like it.
Yeah. Oh, anyways, slide rant. So these are just a few pages from the guidelines we created for them. And guidelines in general, they can cover a lot or little ground in terms of how much detail and the depth the client requires and how complex the company is and how like deep their pockets, I guess. And so the pages here are only a selection, but they generally cover like the logo, the colors, the typography, photography, illustration, graphics, there's applications, and like tone of voice. Moving on, I'll just show a few different other guidelines from other brands. So going to Uber, I just found these online just to continue with last week's Uber theme. Again, I guess guidelines in general, they're tailored to each company, and they are supposed to act as these guides for in-house designers or the other people who might be creating, in this case, Uber branded content. And this way, it's just to create consistency and in their message and in their delivery. Next. So depending on how complex the system is that it's created, it could go into like really super specific things. So for example, this one is a page from the New York City Transit Authority. So the manual kind of describes the design and construction of the iconic New York City subway signs. So from this particular page, they've documented the individual spacing, like unit counts found in the typical words used in the subway system, and all like the possible numbers of letter and number combinations and their letter spacings. So it can go into like that particular detail.
Very detailed.
Yeah, very detailed. Another example that I liked was the MailChimp guidelines, because it's just an example of how a guideline can be translated also into a printed piece, and as a design piece in itself, it should also feel like the brand it's trying to define. Next, I'll just move through these quite quickly so we want to get into design. So this is just a brand these are just examples of super condensed like brand guidelines, or what we call like a brand on a page, like the summary. Usually these just detail the logos, colors, typefaces, and the different graphical elements. And as much as I'd like to create a 100-page brand guideline for my Animal Crossing island, I think we'll just stick with this brand on a page. All right, so done with the examples. Let's go.
Cool. I'll just mention, just as we're getting stuck into it, just for those new to the stream, you'll see above us we have a little Q&A. So in about 50 minutes, we'll be focusing on any questions that kind of come through that we can't answer as we're going. So feel free to ask questions as we go. Go for it. If we don't answer it, it's probably because we're hanging on to it until that break. But yeah, please get your questions in as we're going along. And if you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, jump over to behance.net/live. And that's the chat that we're monitoring. So jump on over and say hello.
Yes. Okay, well, exciting. So from last week, if you remember the brief that I gave myself to create a brand identity for Joyland, my Animal Crossing island. So it's a bit of fun, and the brief is pretty loose. And just an overview of the content I had to work with. So what my fruit was, notify employees' villages. So the things that can help me define my island. And then that got me to thinking, getting the colors. I just took these colors from the colors of my villages and the colors in general for my island. Next. So in order to create a brand, we kind of need brand assets, right? And then in this case, we don't really have photography. So I thought illustrations would look good and can help set the vibe of my island. So I used the color palette from the last slide to use them to create these illustrations of my villages, which I thought, well, they're the cornerstone of my island. So
these are awesome.
Makes sense
I love these little guys.
Yeah. Makes sense to draw them, but in hindsight, like if I had more time, I'd probably do them like fishing or crafting something, but I'm getting ahead of myself there.
It's not in scope.
But I'll just use these. Not in scope, like deeper pockets, come on. So from last week, if you're watching, we started working on concepts for the island logo, and we landed on two options, both that I was pretty happy with. I looked at them over the week and worked them both up to be able to decide which one we'll be going for, using it for the identity today. Small, again, another quick recap, just to go over the idea. I built this one up. And this first logo concept was more of a static one. It's kind of a monogram of the JL for Joyland. It's kind of an abstract looking apple. And also I had comments that it kind of looked a bit like a paw print, which is great because this is Animal Crossing. And I made 2 lockup versions to be used for different application types. And I guess this is just important in general in branding, that there are different logo lockups to be used for different situations. So some might fit a horizontal one better, some might fit vertical ones. So that was concept number 1. And then number 2, which was the fun one that I think everyone got excited with. It started with us looking at the idea of the architectural features on my island with the stairs and the arch. But then it kind of transitioned a little bit more throughout the week into more of a playful typographic and pictorial combination. So I was super excited about this one, and it ended up creating like a bunch of different variations with a beach ball, the slingshot, the balloon, and like a segment of an apple. You know, Animal Crossing fans will know these.
These are all critical tools and icons of the island.
Yeah, exactly.
I know we want to get into design, but I've got a question about this. This type of logo lockup where the logo would change in certain situations. Is there a name for that, or any kind of examples? Like, is this something that's common?
Yes. So this is, I wouldn't say relatively new, but like within the probably past decade, it's something that the people have been moving more. Well, people have been more not really broke the rules, but created these new design systems to fit, I guess, new identities. Because previously it'd just be, that one static logo everywhere and repeated, which like a lot still do. But this is just a different way. I don't want to get it wrong. I always say it's like a, is it dynamic? I can't even remember. It's just like there's logo variations.
Yeah, it might be called something different in other regions as well. And,
exactly.
Often, we might call it something here in Australia or in New Zealand, and then, someone else, the US might call it something different anyway. So, I've definitely heard that sort of thing be called a dynamic logo. I've heard people call it an animated logo, but I'm like, that gets confusing.
I think that gets confusing because like all logos can be animated if they were animated. Yeah. So from that, what's next? Oh yeah, I got into icon land. Well, this was more of the process to get to my 6 variations before, and then I got sidetracked with other icons. But it was just to design different types of letters to see what I liked, and then to put them in the logo and to see whether I liked them or not, and what like works best. So there was one option that I did previously where I had like multiple letter forms with using different icons, but the legibility was compromised. So I guess you'll see it next in a second.
I really love those. So can we just jump back really quick? I just to the last one. Just chat. I'm interested to hear which ones like kind of jump out at you. Do you know Braulio Amato? That bottom right one reminds me a bit of his poster work.
Oh, I feel like I have. I think I do follow him. But but it's really fun. It's really fun.
Awesome. Okay.
So considering all that, I put my brand on a page. So all the different aspects. So I decided to have a final word mark just without any pictorial elements, just because in certain situations, some of the word mark variations may not be as legible. So in terms of like, I was talking to Flynn before about this Joyland one here with the stairs. If you had no context with all the other Joylands, you might read it as Joy Stairs and.
Right.
So it's just one of those things that you have to consider later on. And again, this is a process, and I'm doing this quite quickly. So it's like, okay, I'm the boss. I decide. I like it. It works.
You're the supreme leader.
I'm the supreme leader. So I put it all on a page so you can just kind of see the different elements that we got to work with. And with the typefaces, I chose. Well, I can go on with that later and why I chose these ones. But should we get into designing? Because I'm like
Let's do
itching
it.
to go.
You're itching. You're ready to roll.
I'm itching.
Let's do it.
All right. How do I get out? Okay. All right. Let's go into applications. Well, just to go into as in mockups in general. So a lot of things out there, for people who don't know, are mockups. And if you're not kind of privy in this design field, I can assure you that like 70% of the things that you see out there, like in design agency portfolios, I don't know, just portfolios in general, weren't actually made. Were actually just mockups.
Right.
Sadly. Usually it's just because people don't pay for nice things and nice embossings and nice printing. Oh, so nice. But you know, that's what it is. But for us, it's to show how a brand can function on different levels. So today we're going to do. I've set up a few. I did them in Instagram sites, so I can post them up later. So creating content while making content, contentception. So we'll be doing some business cards. So I just set these up in InDesign. I've created, a light drop shadow to fake a realistic look. I've just put them in different layouts just to show variations. We'll do some posters today, and I can put them in a realistic mock-up.
Nice.
We'll create some stamps, a postcard. We'll see how it looks like as a set with a tote bag as well. And if we have time, I'll go into some like welcome signs and flags. And all these mock-ups are either free, I found on Unsplash. So these ones I found on Unsplash. Other ones, this tote bag I got from Adobe Stock that you can purchase. And these ones are literally just white boxes with like a drop shadow.
This is a white rectangle.
This is a white rectangle with a drop shadow. Okay, so we'll be populating these as we go. And yeah, let's start. Business cards. Okay, these look like they've already been designed, but I needed to like start a little bit just so I can see how the brand elements work together and how, I guess it's just a sped up process. So usually at the studio at this time, we'd be creating like more options with colors and type and seeing how they work together. We'd create probably like 3 versions of that same idea, but in a different way. So instead of having color in the all color in the back, it might just be an element that's colored and that's carried across the whole system. So it's like you have to see it all. But this is just a sped up process, and for me to determine how we're going to apply this.
I think that's a really interesting point, that when you're thinking about a brand, like in this sense of creating all the business cards that you just mentioned, you sort of need to plan them all out and start working on them and see how they look as a collective, which I think is important for little things. And it sounds silly, but like even like someone might have a really long name for their email address, and so that it needs to make sure it doesn't break the design, or some people might not have an Instagram handle. So what goes in that space, or do you leave it blank and does that break the design? So I think that's an interesting point when we're talking about branding for people to consider, that you always have to think about
it has to work.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, functionally as well. So for the business cards, I just looked at it and I was like, okay, we have 6 variations of logos. So let's just do 6 variations of business cards so we can highlight all the different logos. And the good thing about this is, what I mean by I can use these ones is because there's context of what this place is like Joyland on the other side. So it's okay to have a logo that might be more difficult to read in this situation. And I guess just with the idea of this, I just wanted to do something a bit more playful. The type on the outside is just bounded as if it was off an island. And with the logo, I decided to lock it at the base. So hopefully, because I guess depending on how many rules I want to set, that can determine how the design will function throughout all the different applications. So if I decide that, well, the logo can sit at the base and at the top, then across all my applications, my logo can either sit at the bottom or the top. So in this case, just to make it easier for myself, I just want to sit it at the base, just to say, look, at Joyland, you're going to be grounded. So it's always going to be at the bottom.
RB from chat was saying, Joy, how many favorite fonts do you have? I think you mentioned some favorite fonts last time as well.
Favorite fonts. Did I? I don't know. There's too many fonts out there right now. And I think it's always seasonal as well for me. Sometimes you're like, if it's a little bit trendier, you might like verge towards that one. But then there's other ones where you're like, okay, yeah, I know they work. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that one. Anytime anyone asks me what's your favorite, I freeze up. And I'm like, I don't know. They're all great in their own particular way. Depends on the situation, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will create 2 new ones. So we have one for me, the Supreme Leader. Got Tom Nook, who's the landlord, the raccoon landlord. Got one for Timmy. Got one for Tommy, the store clerks. I was thinking to create one for Isabel and Blathers.
Okay.
Flynn's like, I've got no idea who they are.
I'm starting to learn about Tim.
Tim, yes.
To learn about Tim.
Well,
it's fun.
Tom, you mean?
Sorry, yeah, see, I'm doing really good.
What are you learning about Tom?
I just keep hearing. So I was, you know, when something, I don't know, when you notice like a certain type of car, or your family drives a car, or someone drives a car, and then you see nothing but that car on the road. You know that.
Yes.
I think there's a German word for it. It's a little bit like that with Animal Crossing for me. We started doing this, and then like all these podcasts and all these people that I listen to have all been talking about Animal Crossing for some reason between like the last live stream we did and this live stream, and talking about how some people trying to get the like perfect island, like the perfect ratio of people that you can get, which is apparently really unlikely, but people are posting like on the Reddit that they've got really lucky of who they've got. Apparently your boy is on that top list. Top tier Animal Crossing list.
Yeah, I have a top tier Animal Crossing character. But I think you can boot villagers out of the island, but that's a little bit mean, right? It's like they came
pretty mean.
Yeah, they came on your island for a reason.
Like, take your business card and get out.
Yeah, exactly. So, museum director, Blathers. Look, if you actually don't actually go to the IG or send emails to them, they're not going to reply to you. Alright, make sure to save. Alright, so this one's a little bit like, okay, I'm just going to copy and paste from what I did before, but you can kind of see this still is a system. Everyone uses the same type styles and same logo. The interesting part is where it changes is the colors. So the colors, I'm using the primary colors and all the primary colors that I've defined for this brand. And the logos can change out. So they still look like they're in a set, but they're still unique in a way. So with this one, I've decided we can kind of change, they can kind of be a bit more funky, so we can change a little bit. Okay. So you just have to remember like the rules you set for yourself. And then things can change depending on the application. So in a business card sense, it can be a little bit more fun, but again, functional in the way that all the information is still there. Okay, so I'll just close that for the moment and then put it in the applications. So the good thing is I like to do linking to link my link the artworks into each other artwork. I don't know how to explain that, but so you have your InDesign, but then you link it into the artwork that you've created right now. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that properly because it's just something that I do so naturally. But then explaining it like how do this. So that I guess the benefit of this one is.
So are they separate artboards that you've created? The each individual. So in the other file, maybe we can just have a quick look at your business card file again.
So if I open, open some business cards. Yeah, so these ones are individual, like they're artwork ready.
So I think that's the trick, right? So if they're individual artboards and they're right next to each other, then when you go to import, into InDesign again, then you can import an individual artboard right into that mockup, like straight away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the benefit of this one is you can actually design it to the size. So I've designed this one to the actual business card size, 90 by 50. So then if you did want to take it into final artwork and send it to print, it's easier to get the sizings correct because you've already designed it to size. And in this case, this is like me presenting it. If I was to present it to Instagram or my portfolio and I wanted to present it, like essentially it's another design piece within the design piece.
And that's how you can scroll through. So here, just so people know, you're just scrolling through all the different options of each individual artboard. And because you set it up, because you set up the mock-up yourself and it's exactly the same size, it's going to fit in perfectly. Exactly.
So yeah, in here I can choose the different artboards. I'll probably do. And also with this, I think you have to think about what the point of each image is supposed to do. So for instance, in this case, I wanted to show the variations of, and also the front and the back. So you can see I chose 3 just to highlight, it's still, this is a brand, but it's a brand that has these variations in logos and also what the back of the business card looks like.
Yeah.
And there's also different colors. So that's a nice one to put in. This one I might just highlight business card. So I always turn on show import options to actually get this dialog box up so you can actually choose which pages you want to put in. I don't have a preference. So at the moment it's put it into like a small thing. Oh, there's a box over here that I can't see, but hold on. I always use this option to press. If I press that, it just doesn't fill into the frame.
Nice one. For those that can't read it, can you? Sorry, I know it's going to be a hassle to bring the thing down. Can you hover over and just let us know what it was called, just in case other people are looking for it? Yeah.
So if you have an image inside a fill box, or if you just a frame box, select it, and then there's these options at the top. One's fill frame proportionally and one's fill content proportionally. So filling the frame proportionally means that if you've already got the frame in the correct proportions as your artwork, and if you press fill, it will fill it in proportional to that frame.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah. So because I set this up correctly in the same proportions, they should just be easy like that.
And we don't have any scaling issues because it's all vector, right? Because you created it all, so it's all going to scale perfectly.
Well, it should be scaled fine because I created the business cards to size, and the image here is smaller than the actual size, if that makes sense. But usually InDesign renders things a little bit of a lower quality just because to make it faster, so you don't have a laggy screen. But if you want to view it as high quality, just go to View, Display Performance, and then click High Quality, and then it just becomes high quality. But then when you export it, it's going to export high quality anyways. But I just keep it on typical just so I don't have a slow computer.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, I'll just do these quickly, just fill them in. So the good thing about this one is I wanted to show the different variations.
So for those joining us, because I think there's quite a few people that have joined us since we've begun, we're here with Joy Lee, and we're in our part 2 of branding and design. I think we can also say like layout and like system kind of design here as well. And we're finishing on from Supreme Leader's Island. So Animal Crossing.
Supreme Leader being me.
That's right. For Animal Crossing as well. So some branding that was created last week, and then now we're focusing on applications. So all sorts of applications that you can do with the brand that has been created.
Yeah. So these are the business cards. So they're quite nice, I think. It shows you the system, it shows you the front and the back, and then the more playful layout.
Do you ever get clients that want crazy business cards? Like, are they ever like, oh, I want it to be like, okay, Square's not that crazy, but like that, you know, want it to be, I don't know, a bit different? Or are people generally happy with like, you know, the standard sizes?
So a lot of the time, it's funny because a lot of the time clients are like, yeah, go crazy, we want you to be more out there, I like this, I like that, ooh, foiling, ooh, embossing, but then they see the price of it and they're like, yeah, no, we'll just go standard and it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everyone likes the idea of it, but then when they see the cost, it's usually like, okay, pare back.
It's a shame, isn't it? Like, I remember, I remember when I was studying design, and it was all about like how fancy like your business card was, pretty much. Thick stock and like the colored foiled edges and stuff like that. That was like super popular.
Yeah. I mean, I think they still are. It's just that it's hard to get across these days. Just because not a lot of people use business cards, I think, in general. So
that's the other thing.
Things start to exactly. Things start to change now with more digital applications.
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to explain something. CC libraries. We don't use it that often, but it's actually a really great one to figure out how to use it. So you remember my brand assets, right? I've put them in to CC libraries, and it's essentially synced across all the applications. So I have my logo variations here. I can just drag in. My colors, my primary colors I put into here. My secondary I put into here. And then I have my typography, illustrations, and icons, which are all in here as well, so it's easy just to drag it and drop it in.
Nice.
So I guess that's good in this situation. I'm going to create some stamps now, because I have a postcard later, and I was thinking, oh, it'd be nice to have a stamp. I've already created like the stamp outline to begin with. I'll just do that color. I don't know if anyone uses master pages, but they're very, very helpful. So if you're creating a document, or I don't know, anything that requires kind of things to be standardized in a way where, you know, the logo is always at the bottom, or there's elements on the page that are always going to be locked to a certain position, the master page is great for that, because this master page is essentially a template that you can apply to all your pages, so that they show up on every single page exactly the same position, so you don't have to copy and paste it on every single one.
Super
That's
useful.
really helpful. So in this case I'm going to create like 8 different postage stamps, but each of them having a different icon. I would put the illustrations in, but for this situation, because a postage stamp is quite small, an icon would be more effective and just black on a color.
And I notice you're zooming out as well as zooming back in there. Is that because it's a stamp and it's got to be really, you know, really
so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to eye it first to see if it works more. Next one.
I've heard designing stamps is actually like super difficult to do because of how small how small the real estate is. Making things legible and
tiny.
All sorts of stuff.
I
still love those stairs. They're so cool.
They're really good. I'm so happy with them. Oh, I was saying before, I usually work on layers as well. And it's just handy. Sometimes you're like, okay, I just want to switch off the background or switch off the artwork or switch off on and off the logo. Or like lock a certain layer where it's like, oh, clearly it didn't do that. Yeah, that's the logo, and it's locked in its position, so you won't accidentally move it off the page. No, maybe blue. And if we go back to the system thing again, you can see that, well, how you think about the postage stamp design is, well, if my logo is always locked to the bottom, it's always going to stay at the bottom. And then my actually secondary typefaces are going to be the serif and where my icons live. It's kind of it's a system. Sometimes it's a bit, I think like nowadays it just becomes intuition for me.
Yeah, speaking
But
of...
then just to,
Yeah, go on.
Oh, no, you go.
I was just going to ask, yeah, speaking of intuition, we kind of haven't addressed, I don't think, unless I missed it, that in this instance where the icon is like the primary so the first thing your eye will go to, it's taking up the most real estate. Joyland is written without the iconography within the typography. And can you kind of talk about that reasoning?
I guess, well, one of it is because when it's seen really small as a postage stamp, I think in this particular situation, the variations in logos won't work as well. And then also the iconography now, I'm just creating a rule now that if it's shown anywhere else, so either, as the main visual asset, I guess, on the page, the logo should always be the one without the icons.
Yeah. So like this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, is as you're kind of creating the brand applications, these things start becoming very clear to you. Like it is part of the design process, like part of the branding process to realize, actually, you know what, I just realized that this should never be shown, they should never be shown together, that sort of stuff. And you figure that out as you're applying the brand. Exactly.
And some things that, like, they only become apparent once you create these applications, just to implement it, just to see how they work, and then putting it all in a set to see, actually, this element might need to do something else because it's kind of doing either too much of the same thing or not enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so these are cute. So that's pretty quick in terms of putting the colors, the icons together in a design. So to save that, make sure to save. I always say.
Always save. And
always save.
Letting you know, chat, we've got 20 minutes until our Q&A break. So if you do have questions, pop them in chat and we'll ask them in about 20 minutes.
Oh, perfect. So I'm going to just do these as I go. Let me just import my stamp. Hopefully these work, because I just realized I might just copy and paste them, but let me just have a look. If I preview the page, put it in. Oh, it's upside down.
Upside down.
Sometimes it can do that. That's all right. I probably would have rotated it somehow, but just use the rotate tool to rotate it. You can see it's super blurry, but I wonder if that's because, it's just because of the display settings. I've got an outline on there, so just remove that. What other one do we like? Let me see. So I need one, the Supreme Leader's face on there, clearly.
Definitely.
We like the stairs. Yeah. So
Crystal in chat is asking, did you make the icons directly in InDesign?
No. So I can actually show you my working file for that later. I create them on Illustrator.
Cool.
And the reason why I did them on Illustrator, again, it's the whole vector thing.
Yeah.
And also there's you can make vectors on InDesign, but it's not as convenient as Illustrator, where there's just way more tools and just way more tools, and it's just easier to make. Sorry, I have to drag the screen slightly down just because of the box. Yeah.
Yeah, we are just letting Crystal and anybody else know that there is an episode. We covered all that actually in the previous episode. So Johanna will share a link in chat at some point, just on Behance. So if you did miss it, you can check it out. Of Joy creating all this from scratch.
Yeah, it's all flipped. That's all right. Okay. So, woohoo! I'm just going to display high quality so you can see that in its high qualityness. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Some postage stamps. I mean, I have other versions, but I'll just put these on. Save these for now.
Have you ever designed a stamp? It's such a niche
No,
thing.
Actually I haven't. No, I haven't.
Cool.
Like, I'm sure there's like a lot of specifications you need to adhere to. But look, this is Joyland. Joyland. I'm the Supreme Leader. I can do what I want.
Is there a post office on your island?
Well, the post office, everyone actually has a post office, but it's posted through the the Dodo the airport services. So you're posting your postcards through the airport, which makes sense, but there's no actual like post. And then you have mailboxes and everything. So there's a system in place.
It thematically fits.
Yeah, thematically. All right, postcards. All right, so we'll move on to postcards so we can put these nice stamps on there. I've created a template for this already. I guess for people who don't use InDesign that much, the good thing about InDesign is that you can create grid systems and guides to help you essentially compose your design. And this, again, like it can create consistency across your brand. So say, for example, I don't know, you decide that you want to have a 6-column grid. And then you can use that for your entire suite of collateral. So, I mean, obviously this depends on like what you're creating, like things that might, like if you're making a website, maybe you might need more, but this gives a general sense that, well, if you create a 6-column grid, your artwork can be a bit more symmetrical just because it can be divisible by half or a third or 6. It's a little bit hard to explain at the moment, but the gist is kind of there. So if you only had a 3-column grid and you don't use the grid systems, and if you use the grid systems, you can only divide your your page size by 3, you're going to get like a different sort of layer and maybe a more asymmetrical layout compared to one if you do one with a bigger size grid.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. All right, so this is just the back of the postcard. I'm just going to pop in a stamp that we created. Let's choose one that we haven't put in yet. Look at the apple. Because I created to size, so this is like a 2.5 centimeter stamp. Actually, I might make it slightly off because the stamp's never put on that. that directly. Oh, maybe skew it a little bit, you know. Okay. Consistency. Again, consistency, Joyland, right at the very bottom. Actually, I might put I don't know if I need to have... No, there's context in here, so it's alright. It's okay. I can leave this logo as is. Alright, what do we do for this one? I'm thinking... So, the other day I was thinking, well, okay, I'm going to create a brand for my Animal Crossing, but then what do I do for the copy? What do I do for all the collateral points? Like, what's the content? Because usually you have content of some sort to be able to design. You just can't design with nothing, I guess. And you have these brands assets, so you do have the colors, you do have the type, but the content being like the text. And I guess when I was thinking of that, I thought, well, where am I going to get all this text? And then I'm like, perfect, just use Animal Crossing itself, like the quotes your villagers say, or some of the things that your that's already in the verbal language of your island. And maybe for this one, I can just use one of the secondary colors just because it's kind of a secondary collateral piece. It doesn't really have to be within the branded, within the primary colors, because there's other things already in the primary colors, like the business cards. With the type, I will use I guess this is my primary body one, the Kepler. Isabel says this really nice thing that, like, at the very end of your conversation, like at the very beginning when you start playing, she gives you kind of a rundown of what's happening at your island that day, and then she always ends it off with, I think this is what she ends it off, well, this is the last time I saw she ended it off with, hope you have enjoy the loveliest of lovely days. And I'm like, that's really nice to have on a postcard. You know, if you send it to someone, it's like, well, enjoy your day. And I just put it in yellow because Isabel's yellow. It's just as simple as that sometimes. I want to turn paragraph starts off. And usually in this case, even with typography, there's a lot of rules that are set for type, but in this case, I am going it off by I for the moment, actually. And I think you just think of at each particular point of the, I don't know, branding, you just have to think about also like what the function of each collateral is supposed to do. So in a postcard sense, you don't have to have, slap your logo everywhere, because your logo is already here at the back. It sets the context of, I send you this, you get the postcard, and you read that message and like, oh, that's really nice. I don't have to have the logo in the front because I got the context in the back saying, oh, this is from Joyland and who it's from and the message. And you get that through the message already, so you don't have to like have everything everywhere.
I think that's a really good point, and kind of leads through to the language and tone of voice of the brand being part of the brand. And thinking about that sort of thing, and the color, it all plays a part in being part of the same ecosystem or the same brand, the language that we use. You definitely see it overdone, I think, when it's like there's just like literally a logo on absolutely everything you can see. Is logo in the top left corner. It's like brought to you by this, and then there's like links and all sorts of stuff, and often it's a little bit too much, and you can pare it back quite a lot and still get the message across.
Exactly. No, that's well said. And then also in the sense that the different elements can come in at different points in time, and there's kind of a tension, I guess, between that. I mean, we always call it tension, but I just don't know how to explain it as well. But tension being like, sometimes it's just type, or sometimes it's just an image, or it's a combination of type and image. This one I'm going to do, it's like a thank you card. For people who don't understand or who haven't played Animal Crossing, Timmy and Tommy, because they're the store clerks, one tends to repeat the other in weird times in the when they talk. I think thank you is 2 words actually. So when one says something, the other one will just repeat like one thing from the conversation, like thank you, and then the other one says thank you as well, but like in a small, I don't know, it's just a small, nice, just a cute quirk. That's pretty cute. I should put them in a coloured background just to show the box. Go into my CC libraries. What's a good colour for this one? Thank you. I think too much of the green. Hold on, I need to see it in context. I don't like the green that much. Too much. I think it's cute.
Have you ever gotten to this like application phase in a project with your color palette, and you've got to a stage like this? I'm not saying we're there now, and you've thought, oh, you know what? Actually, none of these colors really work now, and you've had to kind of not go back, but you've had to like rethink your color palette during the application
for sure.
phase.
Like yeah, definitely. Like tweaking your colors around, because you just. Sometimes when you put it in to certain applications, you're like, oh, it's not looking that good, or you feel like you need an extra color because it's not as balanced. Yeah, no, definitely. We do that all the time. And I guess this is kind of the step that I'm skipping in a way. Like I'm only doing one version. I've just decided, okay, this is just going to be a brand which has solid color backgrounds, black type on the color, and the images are on top. But in other situations, it might just be, actually, I'm just going to pare it down to one background color, so it's just going to be quite standardized in that way, and not have so many variations. But in other cases, it might be, well, let me add even more color just because why not? Just have the vibrancy that it needs. Okay. Oh, I like that. So there's 2 options for that. Let me just put it in my applications. I quite like that yellow one. Oops, not business card. Postcards. Oh, it's backwards again. Sometimes I just copy also and paste it in directly so I don't have to paste into, but then scale. Sorry, there's this weird text box up here so I can't see that, hence I have to drag this continually down.
Yeah, that's part of our streaming stuff, like obscures the top a little bit. So for anyone at home thinking, what? There's nothing there. There is on Joe's screen, but it doesn't come through.
I guess I can decide this one later, but I'll just put it in for the moment. Which one do we like? Maybe the blue one. Oh, continue to drag it down. The good thing about like showing it all as one as well in a set that we usually do is just to see how the brand plays out in different aspects and how I guess it works in that way. It's just like a good overview, yeah. Alright, so we got to there. Oh yeah, okay, I see. Okay, we're done with postcards. We're getting through this pretty well. I'm actually surprised. I'm like, okay, this is gonna take forever.
We got 5 minutes until Q&A, so we're gonna do some Q&A.
Oh,
so we're gonna take
That's all right.
We're gonna put the handbrake on for a little bit.
Okay, that's good. So next thing,
and also chat. Make sure you get your questions in while we're doing Q&A. All your questions about branding. If you want to know anything about Animal Crossing, ask Joy, not me. Johanna in chat can also help you out with that. But yeah, drop the questions in.
All right, let's go to posters. So I started on one already. I'm not sure if I love it, but it's kind of just to get the vibe across and to create a feel for it. And then the good thing about posters is, like, the thing is, half the time, like, when do you see posters out there in the wild that much, like nicely designed posters? But you know, posters are somewhere where you can kind of show the brand at its craziest, pretty much, because the job of it, depending on obviously what it's for, like it's somewhere where it can be a bit more playful and fun in that way. I mean, 4 minutes, I can just start, I guess. I think I did some sketches previously just to see what I like. I can either create a very consistent or have it much more varied. I'll show you probably 2 versions because they're quite quick and I have the idea in my head already.
Cool.
So the first one can be, so I'll duplicate just to see. Okay.
I noticed
it's not going to be like that.
a lot of the stuff we're focusing on, like the business cards and posters, what else? Postcards. They would all be printed, you know. So, but I noticed that you don't have bleed. You're not working with bleed on right now. When do you like kind of do that process? And I'm just asking because, like, from whenever I'm sort of in InDesign, when I'm at that stage, I'm usually getting something ready for print. So yeah, I'm just curious as to when you start thinking about, or when you start setting things up with bleed and all that sort of stuff.
That's when we normally do it at the final art stage. So final art, as it sounds, it's when everything's, I guess, decided upon. You've figured out all your assets, and when it's kind of like, it's basically the design's ready to go, but it's not ready for print yet. So when you set it up for print, that's when we will be very, very thorough in setting it up to printer specifications. And also, depending on the printer, sometimes they may want certain things and others do not, like to set up in certain ways. So it'd be at that stage where it'd be much more the fine-tuning stages. towards the end where it's basically done and ready to go to print. Like all your logos and everything are like all finalized. That's where you do that. So at the moment, I guess I've just set it up generically in terms of the sizing's right, but it's not ready for print. And also because my intended outcome for this is to be digital, so I've set it all RGB as well. Because in terms of as a brand, depending on where your touch points lie, I guess, some things are printed, and this goes to a total another spectrum of like knowledge in color, where you need to color match. So you need to color match your CMYK, which is intended for print, to your RGB, which is intended for digital viewing purposes. And then you get to special colors like Pantones, and it's another world. Yeah. Yes, if anyone has like questions on that, like specific ones, I can answer. I'm just going to drag some variations in.
So where are these words coming from? Is this something that you've written? It's feeling less deserted already? Something today?
So I was saying before, they were from the actual game itself. Sometimes when you complete an action or do something, your player would start talking. And feeling less deserted already was a one I got from the early stages of the game, where you start putting down a tent, and then your character says, "I put down a tent. The island's feeling less deserted already." And then I've just reconfigured it to this particular scenario, because I'm like, okay, these posters are almost like not propaganda-y, but are supposed to make you want to come to the island and craft something today. In general, like you can craft items, so it's just a nice like, oh hey, craft something today at Joyland.
Awesome.
So enjoy.
Well, should we take our break, our Q&A section now?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Enjoy long walks on the beach. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Can you walk along the beach, like around the whole island? Like how long would it take you to walk around the island?
Like a minute.
Like a minute?
Literally a minute. Use your character, walk it for a minute.
This is like an ad for Animal Crossing. We are not affiliated with the fine folks at Animal Crossing, but it actually is starting to make me want to play it. So here we are, Q&A break. Just a couple of minutes. There's a couple of questions that I've got. Feel free to get them in if you have some more. I thought this was a really great question around branding from Roland in chat. Asks, has Joy ever worked on brand identity for motion graphics? If yes, what issues are different to creating a brand identity for static imagery only?
I kind of understand that question. So, is that question like in when you're referring to motion graphics? Are you referring to? I guess what are you referring to? Like, are you like a motion graphics company, or more specifically, we need to consider motion graphics within the assets of your brand?
I would consider the latter. So not necessarily that you're actually creating the motion graphics or the animation, but say a brand came to you and they're like, one of our touch points is creating
motion.
It's creating ads or creating banner ads or creating like pre-roll ads or something like that, and we want this brand to definitely come alive at that point. But of course, we've got all this static stuff and everything as well. So when has that come into consideration? Or have you had to work with a motion designer or brand agency? Motion agency within, or how does that work if that comes across?
I think it depends, because if you're starting from scratch without any motion already within the system, that's when we can come up with how that works. So, say for example, it's a purely like, I don't know, it's got illustrations within this particular brand, and then in and then how we want something to be animated within this, or when we take these illustrations into the digital space and we want them animated, it makes sense to create something that complements the illustration style. And that kind of goes for video content as well. We'd create title sequences or and a certain, I forget what they're called, you know those things, those bars that come out on the bottom? I just have a mind blank. Supers or whatever that like come across the screen when they need to show a person's name or the end sequence or like the titles or whatever, but it's done in a way which will complement the brand. It's kind of hard to explain. It's a little bit more like what will look and function for the assets we've created.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know how to explain that in a better way, but again, like these, they can vary a lot because if you're working directly with it varies because if you work directly with a motion person, they might know how things might be translated better than we do. We can only go off, like as brand designers, we can only go off either examples we've seen in the past or like things that we imagine, but then you are limited by what you don't know. So when you are an animator or a motion graphics or anyone who works in that video space, you'll have more of an idea of how much you can push things and how much more breadth you can cover. So it's kind of just working with other people and figuring that out.
Yeah, cool, great.
Or working with what you got.
Working with what you got. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering the question. Easier question. What would you take to a desert island?
Oh, what would I take? Depends on this deserted island, what would they have on a deserted island? Like, is there fresh water? I don't know, I think very logically in these situations. It's like,
such a designer answer to the question. Like, it's like how many people does it take to screw in a light bulb? It's like, does it have to be a light bulb?
Yeah.
I always love, like, whenever you speak to a designer, they just start unpacking the question rather than answering the question.
You're like, does this deserted island have a working plumbing system?
Right.
Does it?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a tough
like
one.
I'd
We can narrow it down to if you had to take one book, what would it be?
Oh, I need a long book. Oh, this is hard because I had this debate with not really a debate, but it's more like I like to read new things all the time, and I don't really like to read. You might be in
a lot of trouble if you're on the island for a while.
I know, then it means that I have to keep reading it again and again and again. So this is not, the question's not easy. This is not easier.
Yeah, Johanna in chat, I think he's giving me a bit because I said it was an easier question, but apparently it's unanswerable.
I feel like this is there's too many variables. Oh, I'm so bad at answering questions. I'm so sorry.
That's all.
I'm like, a dictionary? I don't know, maybe not. That doesn't help. I'll create my own language. Maybe I'll create my own book.
We'll move on to those easier, your own book. You'd write your own book. That's
I'll write my own book.
I like it. We'll go to the easier branding design questions. What is the hardest part of making this? That was the question, but we could qualify it a little bit and say kind of what is the hardest part of creating a brand or brand identity, do you think?
I mean, the hardest part in this circumstance is like how for this Animal Crossing brand is because I'm the client and I'm like, well, I have to decide what I actually want and what feels right for my island. And I don't really have another opinion on that because I'm my own client. So again, you are your harshest critic. In general, what's the hardest thing? I think the hardest thing is, well, I guess in the sense that our job is to create a system that other people can use and to actually implement because we're not the designers for the company for the entire span of however many years that they continue to be a company. So the hard part is to be able to create a workable system that other people can take and implement, and to create a consistent narrative around that. Because sometimes, again, like, even though we have like, certain of us, when we make it, we have the intuition of, oh, we know that goes there and that goes there and that should look like this. But just giving someone these guidelines, even though it like states everything, like where things need to be and all that, sometimes it just doesn't translate. And out there, you just wonder, like, oh, this looks a little bit weird. Like, it's kind of in the brand, but also it looks not quite right. And I guess, like, that's the hardest part, I think. It's not, yeah, I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah. Do you ever like work with the company? Like, obviously, when creating a brand, the idea is to create the brand and then kind of have a handoff at some point, whether that's gradual or immediate, and then they eventually will implement the designs based on the branding. Do you ever like like hang on like as a retainer? I think they often call it in Australia, like stick around a little bit, help with some applications, so there's like a bit of a crossover over time. Do you guys ever do that?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's how my creative director Linda likes to work. We like to work with companies, and whether that's with the actual in-house team, we'd go into their offices with them and help out their in-house teams, and kind of mentor them in a way of how this branding should be applied and implemented, and in that way. And same with retainers, in terms of doing reviews. So they have outside or the in-house designers or the other like ad agencies have done something within the brand system, but that needs just review. We just have a look at it to see, actually, maybe it'd be better if it was done this way, or we just have some comments on that. So that would be a way to create consistency, I guess. Cool.
I like it a lot. I think this question's more for me. Would you rather battle one T-Rex sized duck or a million regular sized ducks? A million regular sized ducks, because if I'm going down, I want to be surrounded by adorable ducks. So thanks for the question, Festus.
Oh my gosh.
Would love some advice on how to best showcase website design in a portfolio?
Oh, okay, interesting.
That's interesting.
So, the other day I saw an interesting one where they actually embedded the site within the site. That's probably complex, but what I mean by embedding a site in a site, you can actually go on the site they created within your portfolio site. Anyways, that's besides the point. Good way to show it. I mean, probably the best way to actually show it is if it's a live site that you actually created yourself, then the best way would be if you're the client or whoever is looking at your body of work to actually go to the site and have a look. But again, a lot of the times it isn't like that, and we have a concept for the site, but the site either doesn't get created that way. But if you just want to show off the design, if possible, like if you have animation skills or that, you can actually animate it to show how it should interact. I guess it depends on the point of, depends on the purpose. So if you're just showing the design, have it static, have it shown maybe within actual, I don't know, a window frame, or in the phone app or phone style. But if you're showing kind of how it interacts and how it works on kind of an interaction design level, then maybe it's best to show how it interacts. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. Yeah, like, it could be something you've built for a client, but if you just send the URL over and say, hey, just check out the URL, you're no longer in control of that. Like, so the client might, change things over time, or,
exactly.
It might break. So you do want to try to capture what you've handed off to the client,
the essence of your work. Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, there might be some really interesting interactions you've done. It might be like, hey, check out how this sticky menu works, or it could be all about the layout. And so it'll be a little bit different depending on the site. But you can, if you
And what you're trying to show.
What you're trying to show, exactly. Yeah. If there's like no animation, then you don't need to worry about that sort of stuff. And maybe you need to think about how you can sort of screenshot and embed it. And we were showing some like in situ things as well using, you know, we're showing, I've lost the word, like mockups. But you can get website mockups as well, like with people interacting with an iPad, and you can do some interesting basic animations with people in situ. We've actually covered some tutorials on how to do that on Adobe Live before. You know, how it looks like someone's holding a, you know, iPad or something, and you can have your website kind of animating in the background. That can be really effective as well, just to show people, give people a bit of a glimpse.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, like, actually, no, you've covered it all. I was just going to repeat myself.
We did it. All right. Well, I know we have a lot to cover, so maybe we'll jump back in. What do you think?
Okay. If there's any questions, just like, I guess, shoot away we'll
go freestyle.
And designing. Yeah, exactly. All right, we're back. Postal land. For these ones, I will create something that is more repetitive, I guess, just to get the point across. Enjoys long walks on the beach. Who should I put for that one? Who walks on the beach? Oh, I didn't draw Sahara. So this is Camel that likes to walk on the beach a lot on my island. Yeah, that's appropriate. Except I didn't draw the camel, but that's all right. I can. Well, look, I walk on the beach a lot, so let's put the supreme leader.
You can walk wherever you like.
Exactly.
You're the boss.
Exactly. The blue kind of clashes with the illustration, so I'll just have to now go back to change a different color. Colors. Orange. So in this case, like when we do illustrations or engage an illustrator, usually we would have the context of where the illustration needs to go. So for example, enjoys long walks on the beach. Like a more ideal illustration for that might be the camel walking on the beach.
Right.
Just because it talks more to what the message is saying. But in this case, because this is all I have, I'm just going to work with it. And typographically, I guess, I've created a system where the logo's at the bottom, the main headline is locked up to the top, centered, and there's this kind of pull out or like alternative copy element that can be slanted and in the center. So that's the system that I've created, and it can kind of go on top. Let's change composite today to something else. To what's another word? I don't know. I'll leave it for that. There's so many good like copy quotes. It's like one of my villagers say, "Sometimes life is rough," and another one was, "Keep it mellow."
Surely the dog says, "Sometimes life is rough."
Yes, that's exactly who says that. And then there's and then the elephant says, "Keep it mellow." And there's other ones where, well, Raymond says, "Stay on brand." That's his like main quote. He's saying, "Stay on brand." Huh. I'm going to create a different poster system. So this one is one system that can be worked within my identity, but then I'm going to think of actually doing something else that might be a bit more, kind of show that, I guess, the tension a little bit better that I was explaining before. So one large image, let me put in the logo. Which one haven't we used yet? The one with the beach ball. Centered at the bottom. I'll do keep it mellow. So you know that you'll be chill when you're at this island.
That's good to see JB in the chat. Hello, JB. Haven't seen you in chat for a while. The first thing you say is dad joke Flynn. So thanks very much for the support. It's good to be here.
You feel like you have more dad jokes now up your sleeve?
So many. So many. It's always fun. The good thing about dad jokes is if you get a laugh or a groan, it's successful. Like if everyone rolls their eyes at you, it's like, that's fine.
Still succeed.
Yeah.
But then what,
Another
the worst is silence?
Yeah, I think silence is bad.
Yeah.
My wife has learnt to ignore me, and she realizes that that's the worst thing you could do.
Oh.
But then I just repeat it.
Just to get on their nerves.
Yeah.
I'll probably leave the logo at the bottom. Well, that's another way to do it, I guess. I don't really like the colour that much. Again, I can go on like forever with choosing colours and changing the type around and doing all that stuff, but you know, got to keep it to a workable time limit. So you can just see the difference in terms of this one's just more of a, well, it's kind of repeated, stamped along, but just changed out. And this one's a little bit more, it's still in the brand aesthetic, but one of them might just be a quote, another one would just be the image, and something that's a little bit more, with a little bit more variation in terms of maybe there's a main headline of some sort, and then like a call out, come visit today. So that's
just there was a couple of questions about color actually that kind of came up, and Johanna's kind of put it in a good context, so thank you. When you're not inspired by your villages, where do you do you have any go-to colors, or where do you go for your color palette?
Oh, I mean, I think it depends. It depends on, like, it's individual for each job that I do. So if, you know, if something is, I don't know, designing something for a different island or a country or something, I might look at the colors of their landscape to be inspired by that and then get the colors from that. If it's something kind of out of the blue and there's nothing really visual to reference, I could reference maybe the feeling or, I don't know, the mood that it's supposed to give. Sometimes, like, in general, I'd be like walking outside. Like, it's really interesting how much like, I don't know, visual inspiration you can get from things outside, whether it's just nature or signage mixed with the different components of the sky, the ground, or whatever. And then there's a really good app on your phone. I think it's actually an Adobe app, actually. I don't know if it still exists, but
Capture?
Let's check. Yeah, Capture, where you just capture an image and then it will highlight kind of the different color points within that image.
Yeah, it's really fun actually.
So,
like to use. I used it when I went overseas, and like just used it to kind of color code like the day, like for even just my folders and stuff like that. It was like a really fun way to kind of remind you. It's like I went to MoMA and then had like some of the colors, just used Capture to capture some of the colors from some of the artwork, and then just use that like thematically for any of the photos or videos that I took. And even that like reminds me of being there when I'm looking back through.
Yeah, exactly. So like the colors can come from anywhere and like everything and anything. But then you would have to tweak it after, because I find those apps, they're good, but then the colors may need to tweak a little bit based on, it comes out a little bit muddy because the nature of the photo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I'll just leave the posters as that.
Nice.
Let's go back into... Pop that in. I might change them afterwards, but I think they just get the point across now. Is it? Oh, it's the wrong way around. Posters.
It's funny that it's rotating differently each time.
I know. Oh, I think what I did actually was when you draw a rectangle in, but then if you flip the rectangle, it will naturally then flip whatever is inside in that the way you flipped it originally. Right. Yeah, that's why. Classic. Posters. So the good thing about putting it in this format as well is that you can see it later on, and then you're like, well, I don't really like the color of that. When I place it next to all these other items, all these other points of collateral, so I can always change it later. And the good thing about links is that, I'll show you in a second. That's so inconvenient. Oops. So if I actually wanted to change the color of them, like, oh, the yellow's kind of been put into other elements, I need to maybe make it green or something, just because this one's not shown as much. Why is that? I just realized. So my blending space is in CMYK. So this is if you want to set it for print, but I want it RGB. So that's where you can get that sort of vibrancy. But in print format, it's really difficult to achieve that sort of vibrancy if you're not using a special Pantone color or a special ink.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you commonly work in CMYK or would you commonly work in RGB at this stage?
We'd work in, well, it depends on what the client needs. So right now, the client, being me, I'm only going to show this digitally at the moment. So I work in RGB first, and then later if I do have anything in print, then I will either convert the colors into CMYK and find the most appropriate CMYK version of my RGB color.
Cool.
So what I just did then, if you saw, because I updated the colors on my posters document, this document, and because it is a linked document, the good thing is that there was a warning sign that came up to say to relink it, double click it, and then now the colors changed.
Nice.
So that's good. I guess I can put it in this. How much time do we have left? 30 minutes. Oh, heaps. I was thinking, I don't have enough. I have too much content, but no, we're going through this quite quickly.
There's a question in chat. Do you have a print on like colored paper? Like, granted, the illustration would become a bit muddy, but yeah, is that ever something that is considered?
Definitely. So if I think about, or if we go back to, actually, that's a good idea. So with this one, if I wanted to translate that into print, but then if I say, for example, the background of this postcard was also yellow, I would consider, actually, I might print on a yellow colored stock, just so that it's just black on yellow and it'll just be really nice and it won't be like a printed color on a particular sheet, so the sides of each of the postcard won't have that white line. It'll just be all yellow. So that would be really nice. But again, like, it just depends on, and in the end it comes down to cost. So sometimes this one might, just printing it all one color or just CMYK on both sides might be cheaper than printing black on a colored stock.
Right.
So in the end, it's really, if it's client-based work, then it comes down to cost. Like, the best scenario would be, oh yes, I will put a foil on it or an emboss on a really thick, nice colored card. But in the end, sometimes it doesn't end up that way.
More often than not, does it not end up that way by the time you kind of get
more often than not? Yeah.
Oh.
I know, it's really sad.
It's a bit sad.
It's a bit sad. But, you know, we can do it for ourselves. Alright, so this particular mockup I got online from a free mockup service. Like, Mr. Mockup does good mockups, or you can create your own from images of people who take, like, stock shots of empty signage or, like, hoardings or billboards. So with this one, they've already set it up so that if I double click into this, it goes into a separate document where you put your artwork in. So in this case, I'll just probably copy and paste it just for the ease at the moment. Which one do I want? Maybe I'll put in this one because that one hasn't been shown. So I just copy. This is probably not the way you should do it, but this is just me being lazy right now. And just for the sake of showing the mock-up. Okay, give it some time.
Oh, so it's got a bit of the poster kind of texture over the top?
Yeah, they've put a texture into it, yep. I've created it so that the sizing should be correct. I think they made it in, wasn't it? The standard A sizes.
It really does add a lot to it, doesn't it? Like, even just that little bit of texture over the top.
Yeah, definitely. So I saved that, and then because it's linked, ta-da! It shows up. It's a little bit dark on the screen, actually. But it might be the fact that the highlights could be too strong. Could be this one. I'll just save it and have a look. I mean, it could be purple itself, but
just on printing, Sam in chat was saying, such a bummer. I worked in a print shop for a while, and it was always fun to drool over the prices that you know, some of the big bucks, some of the big prints. It was definitely something that I think, you know, back in the day was more common. There's a lot of fancy foils and thick stock and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, no, I've heard like in the past it was way more, it's something more, I guess, way more valued in that way. And then in this, yeah.
Sorry. There you go.
Oh no, I was saying, I guess in this day and age, we interact with digital so much, it's become a bigger component.
Yeah. I remember as a student, we used to collect, like, you basically would just have drawers and boxes full of different types of print, because to get an understanding, like, oh, if I ever had to do this, it'd be good if I had an example in my hand. So we just used to have boxes of, like, what would now probably be considered junk mail. I remember getting rid of all that stuff. I hung onto it for way too long, and I'm like, I don't need this.
I mean, I still do collect all of that now, just because of the nature of. Oh, it's so nice to touch and feel and have in your hand, but you know, the amount of times that you can actually do that, unless you're a packaging company, maybe that's where you have more freedom in that way.
Yeah.
Alright, so I've linked that, so you can see that when I saved it in my Photoshop, it links onto my InDesign. So that's quite nice. Goes into that. Okay, cool. Where are we up to? So, tote bag. Everyone loves a good tote bag.
I mean, have you done a brand or a design if it's not on a tote bag?
If it's not on a tote bag, is it even a brand, Flynn?
No, it's not.
Exactly. You've answered your own question. No. No, we just like tote bags. I think it's just something physical, and it's just something physical, and we just like everyone likes a good tote bag. But I just have too many tote bags nowadays.
Yeah, me too.
Alright, what do I want? What do I want to do with this one? I'm thinking maybe do something. Let me have a look at my set. A lot of design is just thinking and just sitting there for a long time, just staring at it. I can create two options. I think one option would be I can put one of my bigger icons or an illustration. I'll do two. It'll be
Cool.
23 minutes. We can do this. Logo.
And just a shout out for Creative Cloud libraries again, coming in handy there. Like, because before we were Joey was showing how it was quite convenient in InDesign, but of course, if you're someone in your workflow and you know you're going to be switching between apps, it can be such a time saver. I definitely use it for logos, and brand colors are really good as well. Like if I know that there's a client that I'm working on all the time, I love to just put their like exact colors in. And then I know that I'm always working from the right colors. So it's super useful.
Exactly. What just happened? Okay, there you go. So yep, I'm using the libraries now. Super handy. I'm just gonna, because it's a mock-up, I can just kind of mock it up on there just to see what it might look like. Chuck an icon. Oh, what should I do? Have a ball?
It's a better dad joke than anything I've said this week. That's awesome. Have a ball. I love it.
Have a ball. Yep. There's also other ones that I wrote on the side where it's like, catch a sturgeon today, or catch a tiger butterfly today and earn your stripes. Oh no, that's I took it from the actual game, because the game is full of amazing puns.
Oh, awesome.
Amazing puns. And there's this other one where it's like, I caught a sea bass. At least it's a C+.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't even make sense, but just like, who came up with this? Type out. I don't know, actually it doesn't, I don't know why it doesn't work on Photoshop.
It's not coming through.
No. What I can just do, I'm just going to go on InDesign, do it there, copy and paste it because I'm lazy. The ball.
Have a ball. I love it.
Have a ball. And see again, like using the system, my type is at the top, my imagery is in the center, and then my logo is at the bottom. In this case, it doesn't span the entire way because I've created another rule now that when it's with the icon, it can be smaller. And this particular logo is a full logo and doesn't have the icon because now the icon is living as the imagery.
Yeah. I noticed that the icon looks closer to black and the text looks a bit more grey. Yeah,
I think it's just because you caught me out.
Oh, did I?
I'm just going to rasterize it because it should be all the same color. I'm just going to make it all like full black. Again, this is not the final print stage, so there's a little bit more give.
And just for those that might not know, you're playing with the adjustment layers here?
Yeah.
Just to see how it's going to affect that layer. Yeah.
So I'm going to create a group for this one and call it tote 1 just to see. I'm like, okay, that's one tote. Usually to make it more realistic, we can turn the opacity down a little bit, like 97 or 96, so that it isn't full black, and so it doesn't look too much like a fake design. Alright, so that's tote number 1. Yeah, I'd buy that.
It's awesome.
Alright, number 2, we'll put something with a little bit more color actually. So with this tote one, actually, I should make it a colored tote. I've got a tote color option that I created earlier. Blue is actually pretty nice, but now I have to just see it in context of my application. So I already have blue here. I can I'll make the tote blue and I'll change the color of the the business cards, just because have a ball, blue volleyball. It kind of makes sense. It's a beach tote bag. Stupid thing. Put that color inside that first tote. Okay, so that is tote number 1. All right, tote design number 1. Number 2. Let me think. Eyebrows. Get my logo out. We like the stairs, so let's bring the stairs out. Where's the stairs? Oh, here. This one just can be maybe more of a brand tote. Doesn't really need any copy on it. Let's just put someone's face.
This is cool because this is a different variation. Like the other one had Joyland, just the type with the icon and like a tag up there, and this one has the stair within it, so it's like a slightly different version.
Exactly. Let me put Tom, since
Good old Tom.
Good old Tom. I'm still in like $1 million debt to Tom. I just have so much debt.
$1 million.
$1 million bells, yes. Wow. But surprisingly, it's not too bad to pay off. It's alright. Okay, center that. Alright, so this is another tote option. I like that as well. I think I'll leave it white in the background just so it's a little bit different. So put in the grouping in tote 2. Usually I like to put it on multiply just so if you just see what happened. The normal is, it's what it looks like in illustration, but if I multiply it kind of looks like it's been now embedded into the artwork, the tote bag.
Multiply is such a great go-to if you're not sure.
I know.
Always go there first.
Exactly. Oh, I really like that. It's so cute.
That's cool.
Wow. Make sure to save.
I go to the shops with that.
Yeah. Who wouldn't?
Yeah. Johanna was asking in chat, what's the strangest mock-up you've ever had to make for a client?
Oh, strangest. Well, maybe the strangest mock-up that we have to do for ourselves, because a lot of the time clients don't go quite out there in terms of what they need. A sponge.
A sponge.
Yeah,
that's pretty weird.
We recently did a sponge. Yeah, no, it was fun. The sponge is good. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so let me have a ball in one of them. So I'll leave maybe this one as Tom, and then maybe I have a ball here. So what I can do, because it's another linked file, and it's a Photoshop linked file, I can right click and open this object layer options, which can allow me to turn off and on certain layers. So if you saw before, tote 1 was on this, and then tote 2 was there. So I'm going to turn tote 2 off and turn tote 1 on.
Interesting. So you can turn the layers off here in this dialog box.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. But in this one, let me see. You can't really do it for this one because it's an InDesign. I mean, InDesign files still work. Just if I need to turn it to a different artboard, I have to redo it. Business card. I'll just do it this one. Business card. I mean, the reason I'm just changing the color is that the colors were too same, and then I'll just put my other variations in. That's cute. And I have this one. Oh, we're speeding through this. How much? 14 minutes. Oh, heaps of time.
Nice. Johanna's saying in chat, yep, and on that Million Bells house upgrade too. Now, if I could only get the hang of the stock market, it wouldn't be as bad. So is everyone just in debt in this game? Like, it seems like it's just a real life
continually
simulator.
In debt. Yeah. But then the really sad part is that you can actually see yourself paying off the debt in your virtual life.
God, it sounds so similar to real life.
So true, so true. Okay. All right, where are we up to now? All right, so just a recap. We did business cards.
Nice.
Nice. The variations. Got some posters. Poster mockups. The stamps are nice.
Stamps are looking pretty cool. I like the stamps a lot.
Yeah. And then, well, actually, I can pull some of the stamps in here. Hold on. Let me just take two that haven't been shown yet. I mean, these will have to be pretty small. Actually, that's probably not the best, but we're doing... Okay, that's not the best. It's way too small. Look, if it's not to ratio, it's fine. These are probably just a little bit more decorative items, just to highlight some of the different aspects of the brand. Okay.
Did you just... You went to scale them up and then they didn't scale up like the outline did? Like the container did, but not everything else? Was there a little shortcut that you did then?
Yeah, so if I select an image, and if I just use shift and drag, it's not going to increase the size of your image that's inside the frame. So what I did is I hold command shift. I mean, I think it would be different for Windows users, but I think it would be just control shift or something.
Yeah.
So then it will increase both the sizes of the inside and the frame.
Cool. Awesome.
Do we want to do the signage of the flag? Maybe the welcome sign.
Nice.
Welcome to
Joyland. So we got a little bit over 10 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us so far, especially if you joined last week as well and you've been through the whole process from our branding, falling in love with stairs, which I didn't expect.
And now...
and now all these applications and yeah, we thought we'd run out of time. We wouldn't get this far. So it's so great. You work so quickly. And it's definitely the way that you've set everything up, like the way you set your libraries up and the way that you can very quickly move between your like creative design and then putting it into the application. I think that sort of speed and learning how to do that quickly, like when you had your proportions set up correctly in your original artwork file, and then the proportions set up correctly again in the mockup, and just how quickly you can kind of play around and see what works, and then make any changes that you want to, and then you're pretty much moving on to the next one.
Exactly. And if you kind of already have an idea of how your brand works and you've created rules around that, like realistically, it'll be quite quickly. I mean, it'll be quite quick in terms of getting all your elements. It's just about the design then of how you put them together.
Yeah.
So the hard part's always the beginning stages, all that thinking and all that, what, how are things going to be defined and what sort of rules need to go where. Why is it not working? Usually I work with paragraph styles and character styles a lot, so that's kind of what is in the libraries, but then it's been just taken into your paragraph styles and character styles dialog box. It's just a quick toggle with all your settings.
Cool.
Example, welcome to...
The question for me in chat is Jeremy on tomorrow? No live stream for us tomorrow. Taking Saturday off, but we are back with Bill Hope just half an hour after this stream finishes. So in about 40 minutes, we'll be back with Bill Hope doing the impossible animation stuff. So please stick around for that. Jeremy Lord will be back next Wednesday next week for us.
Talented illustrator. 40. I actually don't know if it is 20. My population is 20.
When it's so low, you need a sign that changes, like adds one when someone comes in.
Yeah.
And minuses when they come out.
That's why we need more villagers. Established 2020. 2020 has been an interesting year. So.
It really has.
Alright, that's my sign. Look, it's an unconventional sign. It's quite edgy. It's nice. Alright, what am I gonna do? Lazy man's version. Okay. Tote, we finished that. Let me close that. Welcome sign, let's do this. Alright, I just created this welcome sign from an image that I found on Unsplash. So this is not a mock-up per se, but I can mock it up. Alright, I just copied and pasted that in. Probably a better way to do it, but I'll just leave that. I'll just duplicate in case I mess it up. I rasterize it so it's not a what's that word called? Smart object anymore. I'll get the proportions kind of correct. I don't know 100% if this will work. I right click, distort. Okay, this might go terribly wrong, but it might not.
Yeah, this is like the when you don't have a mock-up way of doing things.
Hold on. Actually, I'll just multiply it just to see, so I can see the background.
That's good. That's a good little tip, just so it kind of goes
Yeah.
semi-transparent. Nice.
Yeah, so I'm not just eyeing it randomly. Okay, that's not bad. It works.
That's great.
Okay, I'll have to clean up all these edges and everything, but it kind of gives you a feel of what's going to look like. And these are great for clients when they look at it. I probably actually in this case use my full word mark without any pictorial elements. But look, I like apples, and it can kind of give you an idea of, oh, if you're coming to this, looks like a barren desert landscape in the back there with no apples, but it doesn't matter. It's the idea. It's the idea. Sometimes I just like to get my not done that well, so I just painted in. Oops, that's not right. I'm just going to paint that in. And get my eraser. I'm sure there's like master mock-up makers out there. Nice, nice. That looks somewhat realistic. Let's save that.
Looks great.
Go back to InDesign. That welcome sign's done, but now if I go to application, so this is a linked object. I'll just double click on, no, that one's another one. This one. Ta-da! Let me just put that on high quality to show you.
Nice.
Nice! Move it a little bit. Okay. But it gives you the feel. Gives you the feel for what it is.
Definitely.
I'm going to put it in this one too, but this one's... Yeah, I'll show that one later. How much? 5 minutes. Okay, great.
Yeah, 5 minutes. I think if we in a few minutes would be good. I know we just did it, but just to step through again and do a bit of a recap before we.
I think so. I mean, I can just do it now. The flag is whatever. Let's do it now. Like I got through a lot. We got through a lot.
Got through heaps.
Oh, heaps! I'm like, I just created a brand in less than 2 hours. All right.
This is the pace you have to work at now.
Yeah. No, everyone's gonna demand 2-hour branding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we have the brand on the page. So this is what we give this is mostly for me actually to see the elements. Let's go into applications.
And would you call something like that a style guide? Would you do something like that for a client, like as part of the handover process?
Yes and no, depending on what they're looking for. So some companies or some clients, they might want like an 100-page document, depending on how many applications and the amount of rules that they want. Whereas maybe some other brands, it's not as important to have a 100-page guideline because they're like, well, we don't really need that. We just want the applications, and we give them templates that we've already set up. And then maybe they just want an overview, so we give them a brand on a page.
Cool.
So yeah. Okay. Do we want to go through each and every one? I guess so.
We'll just have a quick little recap.
Recap. So we designed business cards. which use the different colors, the primary colors I have in the brand toolkit, and then the logo variations, which are quite nice. So it gives you like, oh, this is Joyland. This is a dynamic and varied and wonderfully diverse environment that you'd want to come and visit. You get into some of the posters, and the posters are a good way to show the, as you said before, Flynn, the personality of the brand, the tone of voice, and how you read it and it's like, well, it's telling me to enjoy a long walk on the beach, so it might be like quite chill, and it wants me to go visit.
Nice. Craft
something nice. Oh, the animals look friendly. I want to go visit now. And then just putting the applications in context and institute to see if it works. So in this case, actually, I might maybe change the background color just because the black on the purple might be a bit hard to read. But otherwise, it's fine. Some postage stamps, which are really cute. And then postcards to put on the post. Actually, no, you know what? I'll change this one to the other one. Postcards. Because I created two, I think. This one. Oh.
I like it.
So I can show off all the variations.
Have a ball. I definitely want that tote bag.
Have a ball. Yes.
Good stuff. I like it a lot.
Good stuff. Moving on, there's another tote bag variation here with Tom Nook. And welcome to Joyland.
To Joyland. Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's great when you see it as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so surprised. I was like, oh, we're not going to get through everything.
Yeah, nicely done.
But if you see it as a set, you can see how it will work as a set and all how the different elements translate.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's awesome.
Look, I'm not saying this is the perfect brand, but
it's the perfect brand for Adobe Live. It's been so great. Like, I've really enjoyed it. I think it's great. Like, a creative approach to giving yourself like a really interesting creative brief, so we can have a bit of fun and also got through a lot.
Exactly.
We did it. We did it. You did it. I sat here and watched. But thank you, thank you so much. We'd love to have you back on in a little bit. Love to have you on Adobe Live, whether we're in the studio back in the day, remember, in the before time, in the long ago, or, you know, working from home version is also great. So thanks for sharing everything with us.
No, I love this. It's great. It's great. Good to show knowledge and also create fun things.
Yeah, and thank you everybody in chat. Some great questions in there today. Thanks for participating. You can see part one. There's, you know, that's all on YouTube. This will be on YouTube as well. So if you're watching that there, feel free to jump through and watch part one. You can see the whole process from start to finish. And please stick around. We'll be back in half an hour with Bill Hope. We're going to be doing some amazing illustration, and it's got a few fun surprises ready for us today. So thank you, Joy. Thank you, chat.
All right. Thank you, Flynn. Thanks, everyone.
See you later.